Good morning, everybody. I have arrived at Raven Rock State Park and I'm getting ready to do I think an 11-mile hike today. So I'm excited about it. I haven't been out here for years. It's also a horse trail. It's 7 o'clock in the morning and it's 57 degrees. Yay! This is a horse trail. I'm looking at the horseshoe tracks. That's pretty cool. Today, let's just go through the different things that are important and what you can learn on a shakedown hike. First of all, they're fun. They're exciting. The anticipation you have of going on trail and doing a practice hike should be just really exciting for you. What are you going to achieve through this hike? You're going to make sure your backpack fits you well and is comfortable. The beauty of going on your first and second shakedown hike and setting up your tent, and even when you're in the shelter, is you're getting used to all the sounds that occur in the forest at night. The first couple of nights you may not sleep very well, or you may. A lot of hikers don't, and that's normal. There are going to be a lot of sounds that you're not familiar with and that you have to learn what they are, and that they're really okay if they're going on around you. When you first start the AT, if you start from Springer or Amicalola, depending on which one, at some point when you go to bed that night, you're going to hear machine gun fire. Just to give you a heads up, because that is the military training ground, and they are not shooting live rounds, but you will hear it at night. It sounds like machine gun fire that is live, but it's not. You're also going to hear coyotes, and they'll be in packs, and you'll hear them making all kinds of sound. There are also wild boar. There could be trash panda, which is my grandson's name for raccoons. You'll hear squirrels, you'll hear deer. All of that is normal. But if you haven't hiked before, you're going to not know what those normal sounds are. You'll also hear owls screeching at night, and different owls make different sounds, and some of them are kind of unsettling, so it's okay. You'll get used to it. Unless you have pre-planned routes where you're going to be stopping at 8 miles, 10 miles to get to the next shelter. It's a good idea for you to take your tent with you. Even if you're not planning on tent camping, you may get into a situation where a shelter is full and you're going to have to tent camp. Wild boar are something that you need to be very watchful for. I never saw one during the day, but I had them come into my tenting area at night while I was sleeping, and they were around my tent. Don't turn your back on a boar, and don't run. If you see one, freeze. Try and get next to a tree if you can, and go very, very slowly and back up, still looking at them. And when they turn, try and get away from them if you can. They're very destructive. They can weigh up to, if I'm not mistaken, 400 to 600 pounds. And they're not nice, so just be careful. Let's move on. You need to start studying poop. I know, sounds weird. Who wants to study poop? But you need to know the difference between bear poop, coyote poop, deer poop. You need to know the difference. And you need to know what looks fresh. You need to know what it looks like after it's been sitting there for a while. You're going to run across a lot of bear poop along the way. And some of it will be fresh, some of it won't. If it's fresh, you just need to be watchful around you, and you need to be listening. A lot of times there are cubs that are out. For those of you that don't know, I'm sure most of you do, mama bears are very protective of their baby cubs, and you don't want to think a baby cub is so cute that you're just going to stand there and watch. You need to move away, because mama bear is not too far behind. Good, lots of rocks. I need those for training. That's good. And they've got rolling rocks as well. You walk on them, they roll under your feet. Shoes, how comfortable are your feet? And the first few days, they may be just fine. But if you're going on a 10-day to a 2-week hike, which is what I recommend, if you're able to do that with your budget and your time off, your feet are going to feel different after a week on trail than they do if you're just going for 3 or 4 days. Does your heel hurt? That is probably your Achilles tendon pulling, and it doesn't like to be pulled, so that means that you haven't stretched it out enough. Does the under your arch of your foot hurt a little bit? That could be from stepping on roots and rocks, but if it's really hurting you, that could be your fascia, and that could also mean that you have not stretched that out enough. If your big toe hurts, that means that you have not stretched your big toe. Did you get a blister? Did you take KT tape with you? Did you bring Band-Aids? What did you do to treat those? This is getting me so excited about getting ready to go back on trail. How did your clothes do? Were you warm enough? Were you too hot? Did it rain? Did your rain pants or your rain gear wet out? What did you do to mitigate that? Especially if it was cold. Did you pack too many clothes? A lot of new hikers do that. Did you take enough socks? I take 3 pairs. Some people think that is 1 pair too many. For me, that is the right amount. I have 1 pair on. I have my emergency nighttime sleeping that I only wear when I go to bed, and then I have another pair that I can switch out if I need to. Did you take deodorant? If you did, just leave that at home. You're gonna stink. That deodorant is not gonna help. So no need in taking deodorant. It's just not useful. I am so happy. I hope y'all are happy doing your training too. When you find something you're passionate about, it just brings you so much joy. You're going to need a water filtration system. I have a Sawyer squeeze and a knockback, and a lot of people have other things. They all work for the people that use different items. Did you learn how to use yours? Water filtration. You need to have an alternate source to be able to filter or sterilize your water. If one of those is faulty, you need to have either drops or pills in your backpack to make sure that you're able to sterilize water. Let me share this story with you. I'm just going to stop what I'm doing to share this. I went on my second shakedown hike, and it was a very strenuous hike. It was very difficult, and it was hot. It was so hot, and I came across a beautiful water source, filtered my water, got what I needed, and I turned around and looked behind me as I was ascending up a mountain. I looked down, and I saw a hiker that had stopped, and you could tell he was miserable. It was so hot. It was really miserable. He took a cup out of his backpack and drank straight from that stream. It bothered me so much. When I got to the shelter, I got set up, and eventually the same hiker arrived. I didn't know he was going to stay at that shelter. Well, he was a young man, and he was from Scotland. And after we got to know each other for just a little bit, I said, would it be okay if I shared something with you? And he said, no, sure, whatever you want to share with me. I said, I noticed that you bent down and used your cup and drank directly out of the stream. He said, yes, I've been doing that all day. I said, you know, I don't know what it's like in Scotland, but here we have Giardia and we have Cryptosporidium, and I really would hate for you to get sick on this journey. That was not a shakedown hike for him. He was actually doing the AT from start to finish and had to finish it in a 6-month period of time. And he said, I didn't think that you had anything wrong with the water here in the United States. And I almost didn't know how to respond, but I said, please, when you get into town, you're going to need to use a water filtration system. Please get one. Well, he said he would. The second thing he did was he ate a honey bun for dinner. That was all he ate. And I thought, I wonder if he has any food. So the next morning, there was another man that came in. There were 2 men and me in that shelter that night. And the other man was very, very nice man. And the next morning, I noticed the guy from Scotland was eating another honey bun, and I looked at him and said, I'm not trying to get into your business, but do you have food? Do you have anything besides honey buns to eat? He said, no. I said, that's all you have is honey buns? He said, I just couldn't afford more than that. And I said, well, that's just not going to do. Do you have a stove? He said, yes, I do. I said, do you have a fuel source? He said, yes, I do, which kind of confused me on why he would have those things and not have food, but that's what he said. And I could see his pack. Everything was laid out. There was no food. He wasn't exaggerating, and he wasn't trying to take advantage of us. The other man and I looked at each other, and we almost emptied our backpacks out, giving him food to be able to be successful and have some nourishment, some things that were very good for him to be eating. So you may run across people that don't have enough food, and if you have the ability to share what you have with others, then that can be considered trail magic, but it's also considered just being humane and being a caring human being. Don't give at the expense of you not having enough, because you have to take care of yourself on trail, but I could not let somebody else go without food when I knew that I had more than enough in my pack to share. And besides that, I could always lose a couple of pounds, and so even if I went a day without eating, that wouldn't hurt me one bit. Depending on when you go on your hike, helpful hint, if it's very cold, you need to take your Sawyer Squeeze to bed with you and put it under your shirt so it doesn't freeze. If the gasket on your Sawyer Squeeze freezes, if it cracks, then your filtration system is no longer useful, and it will not filter out bacteria, Giardia, Cryptosporidium. You need to be thoughtful about that. When you plan your day's hike, always add on an extra 0.25 to 0.50, because once you get to where you're going, you typically have to walk a distance to get water, and then you have to count the distance to get back. And just so you know, that is not counted as distance traveled on the AT. That's just extra. Anytime you get off trail anytime you go to get water, you go to the pretty, none of that distance counts towards your AT mileage. You're going to need to study your navigation. Did you get far out loaded onto your telephone? Did you use that? Did you use all trails? Did you use any other mechanism to be able to navigate? Here's some markers they use just around this. It's a really well-marked trail. There are some hikers that think that you do not need to have a navigation system and that you can simply go by the blazes that are on the trail. And that may be true, but if you're a beginner hiker, I would not recommend that. Okay, I backed up again to show you this thing about navigation. Right in front of me is a path that looks well worn to me. If you see that tree that's laying across the trail, here is another path. There's the marker. But if that marker was not there, and perhaps that tree was not there, you really wouldn't know which trail to take. Navigation is really important. When you're on the AT, often when they are rehabituating a trail, meaning they've closed it and they've opened a new trail for the next class of through hikers, they will lay trees across. So even though it looks like a well-worn trail, a well-worn path, if you see trees that are laying across it, usually that means that path is closed. It just hasn't had enough time to, you know, grow up and grow over. And usually when the ATC does that, or the trail maintainers for whatever section of the trail you're on, they make sure to mark it. I wanted to stop for a minute and say, I would really appreciate it if you all would comment on this particular video, because I wish I had been able to find one video that went over so many little tips and hints and things that were helpful. I watched hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos before I went on my hike, and you probably are too. But just to try and have everything in one place, I'm trying to make it a little bit easier. I'd love to hear from you. And if you have any hints, tips, little tricks that you want to share with me that you haven't heard yet, because maybe I just haven't mentioned them yet, a video can only be so long. Or, you know, I learn new things all the time. If you want to share something with me that I don't know, I'll tell you. I didn't know that, and I'm sure it will help me tremendously. So this particular video, I would really appreciate it if you all would do that. You see this tree? Native American Indians used to bend trees like this for directional purposes. Isn't that cool? I don't know how that one got that way, but that's pretty cool. I like it. Look, I've come into a bed of creeping cedar. Look at that. That is beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. That was a 12.08 mile hike. That was a little longer than I anticipated. Anyway, 27 pounds. I guess I'm up to 12 miles now. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you will send me your comments, and if you would consider hitting the like and subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. Y'all take good care, and I'll see you in my next video.